Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This mega show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supernatural, as well as the latest episode of Legacies. Like always, if I want to talk about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Supernatural, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Legacies. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Supernatural. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. For one, I didn't expect Jack to die this soon. That really shocked me. I was like, wait, did he really? I was like, no, there's got to be more to this than that, obviously, but still, it's like, I wasn't expecting that to happen. I thought it would be kind of a much more lengthier process, but I guess everything that happened last episode just agitated his condition was already bad enough, but I think this just made it worse. And this episode did bring up an interesting conversation, which was like, what does happen to Jack after death? Him being half human, half angel. It's like, well, we know where humans go. We kind of know where angels go, but where does Jack go? Because even Sam was like, I don't know. And he's like, it's going to be an adventure. So he goes to heaven, and it's kind of a sweet because it's a heaven with Sam, Dean, and Castiel. But then he was like, no, something's off. And I was like, oh, like, is it? Because I was assuming, because it's like, oh, I thought, because heaven is a little wonky, just because there's like, oh, there's not that many angels left. I thought that's what the kind of like brownout kind of was about. And I was like, no, it's because his angel nature kicked in and he kind of realized it was heaven ahead of time. But also it seems like it's because the empty found its way to heaven, which I think last time I kept referencing it as the big empty. I think that's the episode title, but I don't think it's not referred to as the big empty. It's just empty, which is also funny too, just because like the big empty, I'm sure they're not the only ones who've done it, but like For a Fallen Dream, it's a band, I think they're Australian if I remember correctly, that's the title of one of their songs. It just kind of makes me think of that too, but it's just simply the empty. And so it's kind of interesting because there's not that many angels left, and we know at the very least one died, because remember the last time we saw they were in like barely the double digits apparently, so it's like, yeah, that wasn't good. It was kind of nice that Jack was able to meet up with Kelly and stuff like that. Because at first when he saw that little girl, I was like, is that going to end up being his mom? And it's like, yeah, it totally is. Because I didn't see her name at the beginning. Like during the credits, I didn't see Courtney Ford's name. So I was actually surprised. I was like, oh, hey, that's awesome. But it's kind of interesting because, it's so heartbreaking. It's sweet yet heartbreaking because it's like, for one, this is Jack. He actually gets to meet his mom and talk to her. And for her, she gets to see and talk to Jack. So it's beautiful in that regard. But it's heartbreaking at the same time for her because it's like, well, I'm going, but you're here too. No, wait, this isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. And so, and that ends up being an interesting thing all on its own too, because like the empty wants Jack and it's willing to basically tear apart heaven to do it. And it's so interesting, too, because it puts Castiel in that situation. Do you forsake the tons and tons of souls that are here in heaven that will be lost once heaven falls apart? Which is interesting considering the fact is heaven's literally on its last leg, and heaven still hasn't found a way to kind of recuperate from that. Remember, that was the whole point of like siding with Lucifer last season, was kind of like, okay, he can make new angels even though he was BSing it. So there's still that Michael angle, but I don't know if the way he made it at the beginning sound like he didn't really care about the angels either, so it didn't seem like he had any intention. Even if he could make new angels, I doubt he'd really mess with them. So I guess even angels aren't really messing with him like that because they know not to trust Michael, especially what he did to his own world, doing it to their world. So there's that. What's actually kind of interesting? They haven't shown it at all this season so far, have they? The demon world? Demons have popped up, but like we haven't seen hell. Because the last time we saw hell was last season with Asmodeus. Like, I guess with no one sitting on a throne, there's no point. Like, could we get a pretty frequent check-in, with Crowley, but now that he's gone and now Asmodeus is gone, it's like there's no one to really check on down there. It's just going to be, who's sitting on a throne right now is the question after Asmodeus. It's got to be like some run-of-the-mill demons. Like, I'm surprised we have not cut back to some like shenanigans in hell. There's still a possibility for that, but it's just kind of interesting. But nevertheless, what I'm curious too about is, what is the empty's reasoning for this? It's like, no, he's an angel, so he belongs to me. There's that, but there's also the angle of, is it just because because it wants to make Castiel suffer. It's because Castiel's the one that slipped away in the entirety of his existence. No one has escaped. Granted, we know Lucifer kind of has arisen, so I'm surprised that hasn't become a thing yet. But maybe Lucifer hasn't completely risen enough for it to completely... I don't know. He is on a completely different level, though, in the sense of, like, he is an archangel, so maybe that'll have some effect, too. I feel like as powerful as the empty is, like, that wouldn't matter, so I don't know. Maybe because he hasn't fully awakened, maybe he was on the verge of awakening enough that the empty hasn't recognized, but enough to be conscious enough to try and do something, maybe. We'll kind of have to see on that front, but it seemed like everything about to call it the big empty again. The empty is like, it seems like it is a personal vendetta against Castiel, because it's kind of like, ooh, because I want to see you suffer. So I'm going to take him just because I know how much it's going to hurt you and how much you're fighting to keep him. So, or is it simply like, the question is this a pure on vendetta, or is the empty just that much of an asshole of like, I don't care. Like, the fact of the matter is, you're you, I want you. That's all it is. Because it's like, oh, you're my property because you're part angel. That comes the big question, but I have no idea. It also brings up something I've never really thought about before. Do angels die of old age? Because Castiel is like, because it's like, oh, I already own you. He's like, well, yeah, but you won't get me until like eons from now, until I die. And it's like, huh. So I guess truth be told is we know everything. Because even Death said that seasons and seasons ago about like, oh yeah, like even God dies. And they were like, wait, you're going to read God? It was like, yeah, nothing can escape death, so eventually even God's going to die. So I guess that puts in a situation, of course, those below him when it comes to this whole hierarchy situation, that being angels, of course, even they would. But I guess, like, I wonder, like, what does the typical lifespan of an angel range? Do archangels live longer than angels, or what? Like, I'm curious about that whole situation. I don't really remember that ever coming up about them just being old age or whatever, because it's like, you won't get me until eons from now, but if you take me now, you won't have to worry about Jack. You get me now, and I'm the one who got away. I'm the one that caused you a headache. And that was another angle I meant to bring up. It's like, Castiel being the one who escaped, is that even though he left the empty, does the empty still feel it? Because it looks agitated and hurt, which makes me wonder, is that the whole Lucifer thing? I'm sure it doesn't. Like, that's why it let him out in the first place, because it's like, with you going, the headache's kind of going, like, it's irritated, because it's like, I'm owed something. And as long as Jack's out there free, I guess it kind of gets a little irritated too, because it's like, this is what's owed to me. So without you being there, it makes me sick, and I have to be awake, and I hate this. So it makes you wonder what's what, and that, is it everything? Is it just one thing? Is it none of that? That's kind of where my thought process is when it comes to it. So, and Castiel was asking Jack not to tell anyone, because it's like, oh, when the time comes, that it's not going to come after him until like it knows the perfect moment of like, oh, you're happy. You almost let it slip your mind that you're going to be mine. I'm going to come and snatch you up. I'm going to come at you at the most important point in your life, essentially, when you're happiest. Which, there's still a lot of that kind of trailing around. I guess this is supposed to be it. Because once again, I don't remember whether or not they've really ever said, like, hey, what's that big consequence for killing Billy? I don't know if they've ever really expressly been like, this is the huge consequence. I always kind of chalked it up to maybe the whole Jack thing, maybe the portal to the other world thing, but it's like, I guess maybe him dying was kind of supposed to be his consequence. I guess, because they've never expressly been like, oh yeah, this is what you get for killing Billy. I mean, to be fair, Billy's become a Reaper. I mean, not just Reaper. She's become Depth, so, which we haven't seen her pop up, and there's still the whole Dean thing about why he's still around and kicking. Maybe well, I guess, to be fair, that whole Michael situation was that, but we haven't seen anything kind of lead in that direction, so I'm curious if she's going to pop up this season and what her whole thing's going to be about. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But other than that, we had the return of Lily, which is interesting because it's not Alicia Witt this time, just because, like, oh yeah, she stopped using her magic, so she's grown older. It's actually kind of a sad reason why she doesn't use her magic anymore, because like there's a sliver of her soul left, and if she uses any more of the magic to keep herself young, because even Dean was kind of like, it doesn't make any sense. The fact of the matter is, you have this magic, and so you're doing something, you could age and die But you would rather do that than keep using your magic to make yourself stay young and not die. So why? And it's like, because using that magic, obviously, as she brought up way back before, was like, oh, it burns up more and more of her soul. Now she only has a sliver left. She needs that sliver of her soul to get into heaven. That kind of reminds me of Preacher, which is, this is going to be me kind of going to spoilers, but to be fair, it was season 2, so I think it's okay. It's the whole situation with, I won't go too specific, but it's like that 1% that had to deal with the cowboy, the saint, in season 2. It's like, it's a very similar thing of like, you don't need a lot, you just need that 1%, and that's all she needed was that sliver. And that was kind of an interesting thing too, because it brings up the whole Osiris and Anubis situation, which I think is interesting, because it's like, oh yeah, heaven chose Anubis over Osiris, which they met Osiris before. I don't remember that. I'll have to look that up afterwards, but I don't remember when they met Osiris. That was kind of interesting, because even Anubis, when they talked to him, they're like, oh, he's like, oh, I know you Winchester. So like, yeah, but we've never met before, even though we've died. He's like, oh yeah, like the Reapers, they handle like the upfront stuff. I'm usually kind of like the paperwork guy. So what I also like too is like an abacus. He's like, oh, what were you expecting, a feather and scale? That's I guess an updated way of handling that situation. But I also like to, because I'm pulling in knowledge from other stuff, but it's interesting because that's something that I don't remember that's ever really come up before about, like, because it's not like the Reapers who determine like whether you go to heaven or hell. It's actually Anubis. He's kind of like the gatekeeper in that regard, like to judge you and determine whether you go to heaven or hell. Because I think that's, maybe it came up with the whole Osiris situation, whenever that was, but it's like, if it did, like, it's never been a big thing in this series about that whole situation of someone going to heaven or hell. I guess it just says that whole situation doesn't come up enough. Death comes up enough, but not in that regard where it's like, oh, determine where you go. I guess it's never a big enough plot point for it to be important in that regard, but I just think it's kind of interesting. But it reminds me of The Good Place in that regard, you know, because like, it's like, it all comes down to what you did in life. Once you die, everything is basically tallied up, and that determines whether you go to heaven or hell or not. Because even Anubis is like, I'm not the one who determines that. It's not even God who determines that. You do. I was trying to remember while I was doing notes. I could not remember what the other show was that was kind of popping in my head with this situation. It's a TV show, Lucifer. They do kind of an interesting thing with hell in the sense of, the only people who go to hell are people, like, for Lucifer, it's like your guilt is what tortures you. Like, Lucifer doesn't have to lift a hand to torture you, because your guilt and believing that you deserve to go to hell and deserve to be tortured is how you get sent to hell and stay in hell. It's like you are your own punishment, you know? You are your own judge, jury, and executioner in that regard. So it kind of plays in that role of like, but it makes me think of that, but at the same time it is also coming down to like the good place thing of like, oh yeah, what you did in life will tally up which side of things you end up on. Sadly, Lily she's going to end up dying, so she wasn't going to help them out at all. But then it took Sam and Dean being like, he's our kid, like, you must not have any soul left, you know, it must have eaten up all of it and turned you into a monster, for you to go through what you did and know that we are going through the same thing, that we're losing our kid. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, that he is more of a kid to you than he is your brother. Like, he's more like he's kind of like our son. I'm like, that's super sweet. But Lily performs the spell, but sadly dies. I guess it rubbed out that last flick. Well, it didn't really rub out that last flicker of her soul. It was more so like it cost her whatever little bit of life force I guess she had, not necessarily her soul. Because I think because that was also a conversation too, because it's like they want to do the same thing with Jack, and you know, Dean's like, he's not too all keen about that, because I mean, we don't know how much of an effect that will have on him, what that will kind of do to him as a person. There was the whole Donatello situation. We saw what not having a soul did to him, because I'd almost completely forgot about that until just now. Because I mean, Sam's situation, because Sam was like, obviously I know it's like, yeah, when he came up in season 6 without a soul, like there's that, but I completely forgot that's what God's sister was doing all season. She was taking people's souls. I completely forgot about that. There are people still running around without souls because of her. I let that slip my mind, but because that was like the whole Donatello situation as well. So, but we saw what that kind of did to him and did to other people not having a soul. So it's like, what does it mean to really kind of have your soul chipped away? Like, something's not quite right. Kind of another thing that kind of lends itself to preacher. To be fair, like, we don't really 100% know if that really had any effect on Jesse. I'm calling in spoilers, but that was always my thought. Like, even that 1% would have had some effect, but it didn't seem like it did necessarily, in grand scheme of things. Nevertheless, I'm just going off on a huge tangent, so. But it is kind of sweet in the end, and I'm kind of glad it worked out like this, is the fact is, Lily, her doing that, she didn't know it was going to work, but she knew what it was going to cost her, but her doing it, a non-selfish thing, a very selfless thing of like, okay, at the very least, I can help them get their kid back, I can do something. Even if it's going to cost me my life and I'm going to go to hell, it's okay, as long as I'm able to help them, you know, reunite with their kid. And that was enough to kind of put the points in her favor, like if you want to kind of use the Good Place as a reference in that regard. So it's like, okay, so it worked out, and she's reunited with her daughter, so there's some silver lining to that. Sadly, Jack is in that situation of he is back in a stable state, but it takes a small bit of his soul to do it, and the spell in general, but if he uses more and more of his power, it will eat away at his soul, which makes you wonder what happens to him then. Because if his soul gets eaten away and he's just left with it, like, I don't know if this, it doesn't seem like this has necessarily brought back the balance in his body. It almost seems like it might have, like, almost seemed like it might have brought his angel side back. Maybe, I don't know if his angel side is back to full, but even if it was, if he used any of that power, it would just eat more and more away at his soul. But for him, he might not have a choice later on. That might be a whole thing in itself. Maybe he won't, maybe his whole grace situation isn't fixed. I wasn't 100% sure on that. The way his eyes glowed made it seem like maybe his powers were kind of bad, but that just might have been reference of like, oh, his soul is kind of being burned away, but oh, he's back to life and he's full health. It seemed like it might be that more so than anything, so there's that. There's a whole situation of like, hey, we know where Michael is. Granted, we don't know where Dark Kaya is for a spear, but we will. Which is interesting, because it ain't like Naomi sold Michael out so quick. But to be fair, once again, it's like, they don't trust him, they don't like him. To be fair, that could also be part of some grand plan, because Michael planned a lot of stuff before he disappeared. There was that whole situation with Dean last episode where he was kind of getting a little like dizzy and stuff like that. That's why I'm like, I don't know. Not unless that was just him stressing about the whole Jack situation. But nevertheless, I feel like it's definitely more to it than that. But we will see. I'm very interested to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But I do like the last shot of the episode being like them reunited as a family, just eating and drinking. It's like, yay! I mean, granted, there are many silver linings to this situation. Well, I say silver linings, I shouldn't say that. There are drawbacks to this situation. Cassie's situation, Jack's situation in general, but we'll leave those at the table for now, because everything's great. They're together again, so Jack's back to full health, so enjoy the good while you have them, essentially. So I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store. And now moving on to this week's episode of Legacies. A great episode. A lot of stuff went down. And so let's break it down. Obviously, first off, we had the return of Joe. I had a feeling it was Joe the moment I saw the wedding dress. At first I was like, is it going to be something that's only in the Lark's head? But the moment Dorian walked in, you could see his eyes look at her. It's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And so I was curious to see also what they were going to do with this. Were they going to let Lizzy and Josie meet her, which they ultimately did, but it's kind of crazy because it's like, for her, it's like, holy crap, wait, you're 16? It's like, I had twins? Because it's like, I completely forgot about that aspect. Like, she had talked about, because for whatever reason, I guess in my head, I was thinking she was like ready to pop when she died. It's like, no, she wasn't. And like, the babies had to be transferred to Caroline to survive. Like, I know she gave birth to them and everything, but I just didn't remember the fact is that because she said like during our wedding day, I wasn't even showing. I'm like, you weren't? For whatever reason, I could have sworn you were ready to pop back then. Like, well, you know, but maybe it's been a while, because it's actually interesting because Alaric's like, it's been 16 years. I'm like, Jesus, once again, because we're forgetting, because it's like, it's so interesting because they quantify a lot of that, because like, it's like, yeah, because there's been a crap ton of time skips in between all that, because that was like season 6 when that happened, and it's like, I mean, the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long ago over the course of everything, but still, that was still like, what, 3 or 4 years ago? Yeah, like 3 or 4 years ago, but in the TV show, that was 16 years ago, because she's like, oh, Alaric, you're looking a little more seasoned. But it's like, Jesus, it's been that damn long. I don't know why it didn't click in my head. Of course, it's been 16 years because the girls are 16. It's just, it didn't correlate in my head because like I was always trying to figure out the time skip because like there have been so many and so many years in between. I was trying to figure out because you remember the Vampire Diaries had theirs, and eventually the originals caught up with it, but then the originals had another time skip. Well, the originals first time skip from season 3 to season 4 went further than the one in season 7. Right. That 3-year period in season 7 when it did the time skip, like 3 to 4 did 5 years, not just 3. And then there was the extra years in between season 4's finale and season 5's premiere. So there's that whole situation in itself. I went on a huge tangent, but nevertheless, that's crazy to me. And it also brought up an interesting thing that I didn't think about until Joe pointed it out. She was like, Lizzy takes after Caroline. I'm like, she so does. Because, I mean, she's not who Caroline is now because Caroline's grown and matured a lot. She's way different than who she was at the beginning. But it's like, in retrospect, it's like, she's kind of adopted a lot of Caroline's personality. Like, Caroline kind of was like that. Probably not. I think Lizzy's kind of got it a little worse, but I think it's probably on par with who Caroline was way, way back in the day in the Vampire Diaries. It's like, that was literally a lifetime ago in retrospect. I mean, also considering the fact that she's a vampire now, but you get what I mean? But then, like, Josie takes a lot after Joe. I didn't even think about that. The obvious thing, it would have been so obvious looking at the fact is that Lizzy's blonde, Josie's brunette, just like Joe. And it's like, it did not even correlate in my head to think like that. I guess because it's been so long, so it's like, I'd almost, like, it's been so long, I'd almost forgotten, like, what Joe's personality was really like. I also love the conversation of, like, whoa, wait. Oh, so Caroline had my babies? So that means you and her, which he was like, no, which is like, he says no, but yes, they gave it a try, didn't work out. And he was like, yeah, she married Stefan Salvatore. Well, he died on her wedding day, kind of like, but that's a long story. And I was like, I had to stop again. I didn't think about that. I'd completely forgotten about that. That sucks. Can't nobody be happy. Because it's like, I completely that didn't even correlate in my head. Oh, things didn't work out with Alaric and Joe because she was murdered on her wedding day. Try things out with Caroline. Things didn't work out with Caroline. She was in love with Stefan, even though they had their complicated situation at the time. But it's like, oh man, look, Stefan died on their wedding. It's like, man, just unlucky situation after unlucky situation when it comes to that group. And it gets even worse as you think about it, like, oh yeah, something was bubbling between Caroline and Kyle's. But we saw how that ended. So it's just, that's depressing as hell, back to back. What I thought was interesting about this episode, too, is just like, while that's happening, there's a complicated situation of the whole Raphael situation. That Penelope situation, ever since she said that last episode, I completely see her in a new light. Obviously, she said the whole thing about Caroline just to piss Lizzy off, but like Josie was kind of collateral damage. It seems like everything she's doing, because even the whole MG thing, because she was like, okay, MG, fine, you're so obsessed with Lizzy, you should just let it go, but you take one more shot. If things burn out, fizzle, let her go. It's like, because I guess legitimately MG is her friend too, because she's like, even though she does what she does, like MG's still her friend, and I think she doesn't want her friend to get caught up in something that's never really going to happen. It's like, you're just going to leave yourself heartbroken. I don't want that for you. Or the other side of it could be, or it could be a combination of this, is leave Lizzy alone. Because that was the whole thing I was bringing up before. It's like, why do you want, because she was the one that went out of her way to make it so that MJ's like, yo, work, like hook things up with you and Lizzy. Like she tried to make that happen. But because I guess in her mind, she thought if she could get MG and Lizzy together, maybe it'd leave a little more room in Josie's life to kind of have her own life. But now she sees that it's not working out. So it's probably like, no, you know what? MG, don't even bother with Lizzy because she doesn't deserve to be with somebody just because Penelope just wants to burn everything, aspect of her life and everything. So she kind of wants her to be left alone. So like that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know whether it's because you're looking out for MG or are you using this as your personal game because you just want to destroy Lizzy. Might be a combination of two. Once again, I cannot believe I had, like, there was a 180 on that character for me because I was like, oh, Penelope, I was like, no, legitimate. I was fine with it. I was just kind of like, oh, why are you going to be so mean? You're so evil. But it's like, no, you're doing everything because, as she brings up later on, she's selfish. She loves Lizzy and she'll do anything because she just wants Lizzy to herself. But it's like, as long as Lizzy's stuck beside Josie, I mean, she wants Josie, jeez. She wants Josie, but as long as she's stuck by Lizzy's side, it's just going to there's never going to be enough room for her, not enough oxygen, as she was kind of stating earlier in the episode. But that's so crazy. Then the Raphael situation gets complicated. We see him and Hope kind of bond this episode, because this is all about Hope not really having any friends, which, to be fair, it's like, in retrospect, it's like, Hope has never really had too much of a home in a lot of places. Just because it's like, well, anytime she's had a home, it's never been full. Like, obviously, like, Klaus was not there for much of her life. There's, you know, everything from season 3's finale to everything that happened in season 4's finale, like, constantly leaving her for long periods of time, and then, you know, coming back into her life and everything. But then you take, like, it's just never been a full-on family. It's always just been a complicated situation. So I think for her, she's always had the hardest time making this place a home, because it's just kind of a reminder that her family's not together, and just kind of in the mess that it was then as well as it is now, and she's still carrying the baggage of all that with her. You know, just the complicated family situation she has going on. So she kind of keeps herself isolated because she doesn't want to get close to people, because getting close to people means that they'll just leave you, or, you know, they'll disappoint you, that kind of whole situation, but more so losing them. I think she just she's trying to, you know, protect her own heart, but Raphael made her kind of realize, it's like, yeah, me and Landon may not be family, but he's still my brother. Maybe you should have double down on friends to compensate for the family that you don't have. And I think it kind of made it clear, because, like, outside of her family, she didn't really have anyone else. There was a whole Henry situation. I think it was like the closest thing she had to a friend, but that played out the way it did too. So she doesn't really have too many people in her, you know, her life and everything. So at least in that regard, so her own age and everything. But I think this episode is kind of helped, you know, her. I think the whole subplot to this is her finding her home, finding her footing there, and kind of surrounding herself. Because obviously she's getting closer to Josie and Lizzy, more so Josie, but it seems like this is also her getting closer to MG, Penelope, even though, I mean, I think they kind of bond over the fact is neither one of them likes Lizzy, so there's that. But and now her and Raphael are getting close friends, which that whole thing getting dropped on both fronts, like Lizzy casually dropping the fact is, oh yeah, me and Raphael sit up together, and Josie's like, wait, what? It's like, because Josie's so blind. I guess because Hope was like, oh, I gave you that necklace, it's to reveal, essentially it was kind of like what's on the inside. So I think the whole necklace point was for her to give Josie the straight to a lot of stuff she doesn't say. So rather than like kind of keeping it bottled up, I think the necklace would make it so that she'd say what she's really feeling. So she'd tell Lizzy what's really on her mind, but because she never really does that. Like at any point she could go like, Lizzy, I like Raphael, but it's like, I think because it's also what Penelope was kind of getting at, you feel wrong that you want stuff for yourself, that you want to be a little selfish. You feel like that's wrong, that you always have to look after your sister, your twins and everything like that, because it's even like, oh, look, the party's about to start in 5 minutes, but too bad you spent the entire time getting Lizzy ready. Now at point did Lizzy was just going, oh, I'm gonna go ahead. You know, it's like, oh, you told me to go ahead, I'll go ahead. But it's no point on, oh, I'm helping you get ready. It's like you didn't bother returning the favor. When it was all said and done with Raphael, when he finally told her the truth, because, you know, Hope made him realize it's like the fact, because for him, it's like he recently lost his girlfriend and he felt wrong about what he did with Lizzy because it felt like he was cheating on her. And then at the same time, it's like, he felt obligated to do that to Lizzy because it's like, in a sense of like, be there for Lizzy, trying to be chivalrous, and, you know, it's like, I wasn't able to be there and do the right thing for my girlfriend. Maybe I could do the same thing I could do that and be there for Lizzy. But in Hope's mind, it's like, no, don't do that, because all you're going to do is hurt yourself and her, continuing something that neither one, like if you're not feeling that way to her, which obviously she feels that way about you, don't continue that, because it's just going to break her heart in the end, and you're just putting yourself in a situation you don't want to be in. So, but what did Lizzy say the moment Raphael kind of broke that to her? She's like, where's my sister? It's like, I mean, to be fair, it's that situation. I was like, well, the person she's obviously going to turn to in a situation like that is the person she's closest to, the person she relies on the most, and that's Josie. But at the same time, it's like, well, to be fair, like that's the problem in itself. It's like you lean on her too much for these situations, and that's just going to make matters worse, considering the fact that Josie feels the way she does about Raphael. But then at the same time, it's like, I don't know where that's going, because Penelope and her made out. And because Penelope's like, oh, there's people in this world who are selfless and they're selfish, and I'm me. And that's why she's doing all this, because she loves her and she's selfish. She also brings up the fact is, I thought that's what it was before, but I was like, maybe I was wrong. I thought Josie broke up with her. It's like, no, she broke up with Josie, but I guess it's still that point of like, because of Josie's relationship with Lizzy, maybe Lizzy was always around, always an issue. She always came first before her. It's like in your love life, I want to be what's important to you. I get you love your sister and everything, but when things are between us, what's important between us shouldn't include your sister. She shouldn't be the third wheel in our relationship type of thing. So I'm interested to see where that goes, because it's like, are they getting back together? Is Penelope going to continue to play her games? Did she get what she wanted in the end? But I mean, I guess like, you know, it's that thing of, well, I'm curious to see what Josie does, because it's like, will she aim for the whole Raphael situation? Because Raphael, I think, was kind of oblivious to the fact is that Josie liked him. But it seemed like, you know, Raphael kind of had a thing for her, but it's like, will that change now that he's kind of realized more about the whole situation about his girlfriend and how that kind of leaves him feeling? So I don't think he might be ready to take those steps himself. So it might kind of work out in with Lizzy and Penelope. If she decides to go down that route again, she might not. So it's hard to say. I also like the fact is we had a whole bunch of zombies raising from the dead, and it's like, we got to kill it by cutting at the brains. That's the only way to kill walkers. And she's like, everyone knows that. Penelope's like, only nerds know that, and called them zombies. I was like, that's a nice little touch, just because that's always the thing of like, why don't people call zombies zombies these days? Obviously there are exceptions to that, but it's just kind of like the whole Walking Dead situation. They're like, oh, in people's minds, it's like you acting like you really don't know what zombies are. It's like you're calling them walkers. Why not just call them zombies? That's a whole thing in itself. It's beside the point, but it was just kind of funny. And everyone working together, like kicking zombie ass, and it's like, okay, like Lizzy and Penelope and Hope are like, pretend these are Lizzy, and then like Hope was like, I could get behind that, and they start doing their thing. So that was kind of cool. It's kind of sad when it was all said and done, because, you know, Joe has to say goodbye, and I love that little moment between Joe and Laura, and she's like, are you happy? And he's like, yeah, I am. You know, I'm here hugging my demon-possessed baby mama, and they laughed about it. But it's just sad that the girls had to literally siphon away the magic in her for her to die. Because for her, it's like, oh, I was a witch too, and I believe in the whole natural order of things. Like, I'm not supposed to be here, and me also being here could put everyone in danger. Even Lizzy apologizing, because she's like, I'm so sorry I treated you that way, not kind of really clicking with you. Because for her, it's like, she's bio mom, but she's not our mom, you know? It's because the only mom they grew up knowing was Caroline, which is interesting, because only Josie immediately would. You don't see who she is, Lizzy? That's mom. But like, I guess because she was never that, I guess she was always on Josie's mind in some shape or form, because like Lizzy didn't recognize her immediately. So that's what just kind of makes that scene kind of show you the difference between them in that regard. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But for Lizzy, it's just kind of like, once again, it's just because she didn't really know her, but now sitting here realizing like, but now you're going, and like, I just barely got to know you, and I was so mean to you. But for Joe, it's like, you are, you know, fine just the way you are. You have a beautiful heart. You just have to let people see it. You have a big heart, you know, and it's just, I don't know, I just thought that was kind of nice and just kind of sad. I love it kind of being the perspective of like, she's like, where I was, it was almost like I was watching all of you. It was almost like a dream, kind of like that afterlife and everything, so. But it also brought up something interesting. It's like the girls need to know something about when they turn 22, and it's like, wait, what? What does that have to be about them turning 22? Is that, I mean, obviously it's a Gemini thing, but like what? Is it a whole, it's not the same situation as Kai and Joe, was it? It wasn't that situation. What? I don't remember. Maybe they brought that up specific about the whole 22 thing, but I don't remember all that well. Makes you wonder in any shape or form, will the whole Kai situation ever come back around? I mean, let's not forget where Kai is. He's locked up in locked up in a different dimension. He got locked up at the end of the Vampire Diaries, so I don't know. Not unless something comes about where they need him or something, or someone releases him, but he's still kind of locked up there by himself, kind of back in another similar prison, interestingly enough. But I'm curious, like, what that whole thing was about. Like, because the fact is that she was like, you two need to know that you should love each other and remember that. Remember I said that. So it's like, I guess, like, because like I said, I don't remember the whole 22 thing, so it has to be like, once you go to age 22, because of the whole Gemini thing, I guess it's like one of the twins, it's going to ultimately be a thing where one of the twins has to kill the other, just like the whole Kai and Josie situation. I mean, to be fair, Kai just kind of went and slaughtered the entire family, but it is a situation of, I guess, like, one has to take the other's power type of thing, potentially. them being twins and everything, I guess it's just kind of like what happens to all Geminis. Maybe it's something that just happens in their coven or just happens to them naturally. I don't remember exactly what the whole deal behind that was exactly. If they even brought it up at all, because this might be something they're only bringing up in Legacies, but I kind of get the feeling like, no, it's something that definitely had to have come up before with the whole Gemini coven. That coven is still alive, isn't it? Like, the Geminis aren't gone, are they? I could have sworn they popped up after the whole Kai situation, too, or at least they were... Or did Kai go back and kill all of them? I don't remember. It's been so long. Nevertheless. So that's something to look forward to. I also like the ending to the episode where it's kind of like, I've showed up. I figured as much. It had to be a necromancer, just because they're the typical ones of like bringing back this dead. I was like, it had to be a necromancer. It's interesting because it's one dude, and he's like, I am, you don't, acting like you don't know, I am the necromancer. Play some crazy music, and they're like, who? We don't know who you are. I'm like, wait, are we really doing this at the end of the episode? They landed a comedy moment like that? That kind of comedy moment? The necromancer. And then Alar's like, I don't know who he is. Dory, do you know who he is? It's like, not really. I only know about, them from media I've come across. It's like, necromancers are kind of like bottom feeder, like when it comes to witches. He's like, oh, I'm not like a witch. I'm so much more. Death is beyond me. But then Alar knocks him out with a shovel and is like, we'll see how deathless you are, essentially. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But like in the moment, like the whole thing happened with Jose, I was like, Joe, I was like, that's definitely a necromancer. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Hopefully we can get some answers more about this whole Malivore situation and this knife. I'm very interested to see what goes down with all of this. Also, where things go for Josie and Lizzy with this situation after, like, having met their biological mom. Obviously, Caroline is away. They don't know what she's up to because apparently they're keeping that whole 22-year-old situation secret from them until it's about time or until they've exhausted all resources to battle whatever is going on, because that's what Caroline's off doing. So, there's that. And also where they stand after everything, the Raphael, Penelope, MG situation. Because even MG, that's kind of sad because MG did all that stuff. He knows so much about Lizzy. He made it seem like, he made it show like, oh, he cares and knows all there is to know about her. But the moment Raphael showed up, it's like, oh, bam. Like, I disappeared. And I love him being at the end like, I should duel him. But then Penelope stopped him. So, and he's like, you know what? I'm a hero. You know what heroes do? They get all the ladies. And Penelope's like, yeah, like Superman. Yeah, major slut. So those are some very interesting developments that I'm very interested to see where that all goes. Especially because we got Hope slowly but surely kind of building out her ranks. Essentially making friends. Got her own, as she said, Avengers, and I'm sure Raphael is kind of included in that as well. So, like I said, great episode. I'm so excited to see where all this takes us going forward. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.